Hi everybody, welcome again to Yeshiva Classroom, and we're here every week at this time, and we hope you enjoy the program, and if you do, please tell your friends that they might find something interesting about Torah and Judaism and the Jewish people and how unique and divinely given we are. So we're here again at this channel that you're seeing us, and also you can catch us on YouTube, Yeshiva Classroom YouTube. Yeshiva Classroom YouTube. That's all you have to type in and you'll get our program. Although they may be out of chronological order because they just recently did some kind of a maneuver there that our latest tapes are not always the latest ones. Okay, so we got a lot of information to impart to you, so we hope you will stay tuned because there's a lot of information that we want to give over. And basically, where do we start? Let's start again from the Torah, right? Torah, which is the 5 books of Moses, the 5 books of Moses, and it's known to the Gentiles as the Old Testament. But it's the only Bible we have. We don't have a New Testament, but we have a Torah. The Bible, the Jewish Bible, consists of the 5 books of Moses, right? The 5 books of Moses, and it was given in a scroll form, and it was dictated. Actually, it was dictated to Moses, and we're going to go into that. But first, let me just start off by again reminding you that the words of the Torah are divinely given, and the first book is the book of Genesis, Bereshit in Hebrew, and the second sentence in that book says that the Ruach Halakim Rachefes al Pnei Hamayim, the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters, and like a helicopter, so to speak. And what was it hovering for? It was hovering to find a righteous person who would be a surrogate for the teachings of the Torah, right? The 5 books of Moses, divinely given, and we also have total 24 books that are divinely inspired, total 5 and 19 others that we're going to get to, hopefully. And of course there's the Talmud, which supplements the 5 books of Moses. Why do we say supplement? Because, look, for instance, you know, one of the commandments is that we should slaughter ritually according to the dictates of the Torah. But in Deuteronomy, when it talks about slaughtering animals, kosher animals, it says, write this down because it's important, because you can look it up. I want you to do homework to see exactly what I'm referring to when I bring these sentences down, because everything is based on the Torah and the sentences of the divine Torah. And in Deuteronomy chapter 12 verse 21, it says, you should slaughter as I command you. And where did he command you? It's no longer any description of how one should slaughter in the 5 books of Moses, but in the Talmud it goes into great detail as to the type of knife, the type of place where one should slaughter the animal, on the neck, you know. So it goes into great detail. So that's one example. Another example is you should have a frontlets. You should wear a frontlets between your eyes. Totofos. Yeah, they should be frontlets, and that's referring to the tefillin. Now we have tefillin, and we know that there are two boxes, botim, right? One on a hand and one next to the botim, the box containing the scriptures, is next to the heart, and one on the head. So we have two tefillin that we wrap ourselves in on every day except Shabbos and the holidays. That's two examples. And then it said you should do no work on the Sabbath, in one of the 10 Commandments. So the word work in Hebrew is malacha, and what does that mean? And so the Talmud tells you what a malacha is, and basically there's 39 categories of different workings that one should be prohibited from doing during the Sabbath. And there are categories. So, like, in the 21st century, we have cars and how they operate, and so they're prohibited on Shabbos. But it didn't give a specific list because we don't know what would come along in the subsequent generations. And for example, the car, the electric light bulb, what's the ruling on these things? Because after all, there are 39 categories, and those 39 categories are prohibited. Any substance or use of an object that falls into that category, it's prohibited to be used. Okay, so before I'm going to be a great deal tangential, but I hope I'm informative, because first, just to get back to that sentence in the Torah, the second sentence in the Torah, God hovered over the face of the waters. There are basically three religions, although Judaism is actually a way of life, and one of the reasons it was given, main reason, is to show gratitude to God, to show gratitude to all the creations that He made around us, and constantly praise Him for that. Giving our own bodies, the flesh and our arms and our bones, and that we can maneuver, and we place on the as an offering, that saying that we offer these animals and use the limbs to realize that they are all from God, and we put ourselves into the guise of an animal, so to speak, so to show our strong desire that our entire being is for God, and it was created. So that's one of the reasons we were given the Torah. One of the reasons to giving the Torah is that we should show gratitude. And to start off, we have to show gratitude to our parents who put up with us and gave us all the amenities that we needed to grow and to live by. And once you have that understanding that they are to be praised and show gratitude to them, then the next step on the ladder is to show gratitude to God, who gave everything to everybody. And basically that is the Torah, why it was given, because we are to show gratitude. And as a matter of fact, and one of the directives that we should do is bechinam, contemplating God's phenomena on Shabbos. Take any type of a creation, a tree, a piece of wood, a flower, anything. You can show all the miracles that went in to have that creation perform and show us and realize that it's all from God. And we were blessed by God to to have these and to use these with our faculties. So that's a very important subject, to show gratitude to God for everything that He created for us, including our bodies and the environment in which we live. And a function of that, a manifestation of that, is to show, to become holy. Holy means perfection, to try to be perfect by doing the commandments, because before we partake of anything that has been God-given, we have to say a blessing. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. You, Lord our God, King of the universe. And we go back to the first word, Baruch, who is the source of all blessings. We thank you. That's right. So that by acknowledging that doing the mitzvahs, the commandments, and we say, well, they're so difficult. You know, who needs to be burdened by all these commandments of can't put this together with that, or the dishes got to be separate, and why do we need to be burdened with that, quote unquote? It's not a burden. It does the more opportunities to follow God's directives and thereby accumulate holiness points, because that is something that we were given, gratitude and perfection or holiness that we are to strive for in our daily lives, so that we will accrue holiness points. And after our demise, after 120 years, you know, people think we're never going to get old, we're never going to pass away. You know, that old person is not us. We're never going to get that old. But it comes about, and you know, observant Jews many are working for the dollar to increase their earnings, and what they should be doing is taking time off most of the time to, it says in the Mishnah, limit business and involve in Torah. Limit business and involve yourself in Torah, because although we need a healthy body in this world, it's still more important that we gain a healthy soul, so that we will pass the test of being with God in the next world, And you know, many of the, you know, we can go on and on, but you know, many of the religions or God belief religions take these things from Judaism, and I'll show you an example of you know, Christianity came along many years after Judaism and said, I was told that God told me to give the law in this way, and I am the lawgiver. And he said God told him that. And then Muhammad came 600 years after him and said, God told me that this is the law, and this is the law that I'm going to give you and to live by. While his predecessor had missionaries go out and tell the people that this is the law that were given to him to give to you. And Muhammad, he had his messengers use the sword. Either you convert or you die. So those are. But what does Judaism say? I mean, well, isn't it smarter if God would, instead of telling these individuals how they should proceed to disseminate the law, wouldn't it be better, smarter, if God gave the people the message that they should listen to this individual and to that individual, or to that individual, as he did to Moses and on Mount Sinai, where the Jewish people stood in front of Mount Sinai and they heard God give the 10 Commandments, and declare that Moses is your lawgiver. Moses is your lawgiver to the people. Not to Moses, but to the people. And in Exodus 19, chapter 19, verse 9, it says over there that God descended in the thickness of a cloud and spoke to Moses so that the people could hear and believe forever. And believe forever. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the school system. We messed up so frequently that we don't have the school systems in place to teach these important directives, unfortunately, and that's why we went away, but we must return. Okay, now we still never got out of the first sentence that God was looking for a surrogate, someone to represent his views, because after all, this is a testing world. We are here to accrue holiness points, and that is our function. That is our life as Jews. And God was looking for a surrogate, and there were many righteous people. You know, Adam, the first man, was given this charge, and he was told to work and guard the garden. It's in Genesis chapter 2, I think verse 4. He says, guard and work the garden. There was nothing to work on. All the food and the fruits and vegetables were already cooked. They were cooked and baked. All he had to do is go to the tree and pick off an apple, or whatever tree it was. And the term to guard and to work the garden means to guard against the negative commandments and to work on the positive commandments. And we see that Adam messed up. He followed his evil inclination, and that's an important subject, evil inclination. Write this down. You wrote down Exodus chapter 19, verse 9, right? And now in Genesis chapter 4, verse 7, it says, sin crouches at the door and is desirous to you. Sin crouches at the door and is desirous to you, but you can overcome. Now, what does that mean? That sin, transgression, is ready to find any kind of an opening so that it can attack you, your weak spot, and make you think irrationally and choose the wrong decision, because man has free will. He has the ability to choose between right and wrong. That's a God-given description of God, and man was given that part to choose between right and wrong. And Adam, unfortunately, was influenced by the tree, by the snake. Now, the evil inclination takes on many forms, and in that form it was the snake, and he told Adam to eat from the tree of knowledge, because Adam did so because, after all, knowledge was what he was after, to try to understand the commandments and to force himself into a greater understanding so that he would accrue holiness points, right? And knowledge would be a good thing, but God told him not to do that, not to eat from that tree of knowledge, because it was knowledge that was not important, and it was not for him to have. So, right, they have 4:7, and that's one example of where we have the evil inclination, outside force. And you can see that stolen waters are sweet. I mean, you have all kind of waters, but here, if it's stolen, it might taste better. Or after you've eaten a full meal and it's a fast day, and you want to go to the synagogue, and the evil inclination says you need one more drink of water. It's very important that you have it. Basically, outside force, but it can be an inside force too. If you know, to eat, to regulate your eating abilities, it tells it's an inborn quality that enables you to eat when you're hungry and to need more energy. But it can be used in an abnormal way as a glutton and keep on eating. Or anger, right? Anger is used to overcome certain obstacles, but if you use anger in a wrong way, it's basically you're going to do harm. So yeah, so evil inclination. Now, another important sentence regarding the evil inclination is on in Genesis chapter 8, verse 21. We just doubled and tripled. Go 4:7 to 8:21. And over there it says the inclination of man is evil from his youth. Now the Gentiles took our Bible and they said they translated word from word, right? And they said the inclination they leave out. They translated word from word. Evil. Man is evil. But they don't have the true meaning of definition of the word evil, and they just translated as evil, as opposed to saying the inclination of man is evil. And that means that the evil inclination is attacks you even when you're very young, to try to dissuade you into a different path, which is not good for your soul, spiritual health. Now, when you said you were a soul, you know, what is a soul? You operated on and no one has ever seen a soul, and so you will. But you know, if you give over a present to a loved one, and the loved one enjoys it, it makes you happy. What is that feeling of happiness that you experience? Is it your heart, your liver, your mind? No, that's your soul. S-O-U-L. So we have an example of how you can do good for your soul by doing holiness, doing mitzvahs, doing commandments, good deeds between man and man, and between man and God. I spoke to one person. He said, "Well, how is that going to make me a better person? You know, eating kosher, how is that going to make me a better person?" Well, the point is, we just pointed out that you can be your true holiness points, your soul. It's important for your soul. Look at Leviticus chapter 20. In chapter 20 in Leviticus, there's 26 sentences, and there are 3 basic categories to become holy. And one is do not believe in false gods and idols, and 2 is immorality. The laws of immorality should stay away from and follow those laws. And the third thing is the eating kosher. It's 26. That's the 26th sentence in the third category is by eating kosher to become holy. Now, we don't know a lot of the important subject matter that I mentioned about in detail. Let's read the Talmud. So that's the thing. So I separated you from the nations to be mine, to be separate. I separated you from the nations to be mine. That's on the last sentence in the chapter, in Leviticus chapter 20. So here we go. We're back to finding a surrogate for God in this world. And many people came forward. They were very righteous, you know, Methuselah and Hanoch, and even Noach. Noach Tommy Bidiraisov, Noach Ish Sadiq. He was righteous in his generation. We say, right? That's what you look for. That person who was the saved from the flood waters of the earth, that consumed the earth. But it says that Noah walked with God. He needed the support. He needed the support of God to carry on, but wasn't what God was looking for. Although the Goyim, the Gentiles, may follow his 7 laws that he that was formulated in the teachings that were handed over to him, which are included in the 613 categories that a Jew is to follow. And don't get all flustered and saying 613. You know, that's a whole subject in itself, because first of all, we don't have the offering, we don't have the temple where we can present offerings. But the point is, you know, when it comes to coming around Passover time, this is being recorded on March the 3rd, 2020 in the afternoon, and I just got not the final results, but close to the final results, and the right-wing government of Netanyahu has 59 seats, too short of the 61 needed. And you know, it's interesting to note that he went to Derry right afterwards personally, and Derry is for a broad government, and he doesn't want a narrow government as opposed to peeling off 2 seats from somewhere else. So it remains to be seen what the total vote is, and the total number of seats allocated to the different parties based on the total voted by the people. So I think it's 3.25%, and so it's interesting to see. But I mean, personally, I would vote for Azmat Yehuda, because Azmat Yehuda with Ben Gvir stands for a program that is according to the Torah, not to give back any land that is God-given. I mean, you know, the boundaries are delineated in the Bible. Numbers chapter 33 or 34. It tells you the boundaries, and even to Abraham it gave him the boundaries. So, you know, here they have is a map of Israel, and here they had Gaza, right? Gaza is a little strip over here, and half of that was given back to, what was it, about 10, 15 years ago. They say, listen, Gaza needs more rooms, a lot of hours there. They keep multiplying, and we'll give them more rooms so they can live by them, they're more comfortable. And what they did, they took the irrigation dishes, irrigation pipes, and made rockets out of them. Instead of using them to grow and to export, they made rockets out of them and shot them towards the country of Israel and the surrounding communities, into the surrounding communities. And now there's talk that Netanyahu wants to make a broad-based government and bring in Gantz and some of his followers and give President Trump peace plan some validity, although it's taken away right in the heart of Israel, land that was God-given. So it remains to be seen what will happen. But anyway, basically, as I say, this is being recorded on March 3rd in the afternoon. That we have 59 seats for total right wing on Lieberman. It has 6 seats, or 7 seats, who is mainly Russian and anti-Judaism in the government. Doesn't want any Jewish religion, even though the whole basis of Judaism is based on the Torah and the following of the Torah and living by the Torah. Okay, so where were we? So he picked Abraham, and he made a covenant with Abraham, and he made a covenant, and he said that you'll be in a land, and your children will be in exile for 400 years. and your children, meaning beginning at Isaac. Isaac was there for 60 years, and then Jacob went down when he was 130 years to Egypt. It was 190, and he stayed in Egypt 210 years, which ended in 400 years, and into exile. The children went into exile, and the last years were 80 years because they assimilated and away from the Torah. But someone pointed out to me, well, look, it says in a different place 430 years. Right, it says if you want to count 30 years before the children were exiled in the covenant of the pieces, where God made a covenant, so to speak, with the covenant with the Jewish people forever. Abraham had a vision, and the vision showed that God in an eternal fire, and Abraham and the Jewish people by a smoking butt, a torch, and they passed between the pieces of animals that were slaughtered, and that was a form of formality to show that the agreement was finalized between the two parties, God and the shepherd, and Abraham, the father of Judaism. And he was chosen as the surrogate to represent the Jewish people. And it's interesting to note that he was chosen from a different land, in Ur Kasdim, a land of Persia, and he went to Haran, and God told him to go to Israel, and he came to Israel. He gave up, he broke the idols, and he went into the belief that there's one God, and he set up altars throughout the country, speaking at them, and not to offer any offerings, but to speak to the people about showing gratitude to God, who has given us all of these beautiful environmental assets to make our life so happy. And the manifestation of that is to strive for perfection or holiness, always be having an awareness of God. So those are two principles that he preached, and we carry that on today. And we see that what I want to say, he set up altars, and he spoke. And when he came from Ur Kasdim and Haran in Mesopotamia, which is present-day Iraq or Iran, so he came with the Torah enumerates. I think it's in Genesis 12:4. He came with his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, right, and the souls that he had made, and the souls that he had made. In other words, he was telling the people back in Ur and Haran, right, that there is one God, it's not an idol, and you should believe and carry your life with the commandments that I'm teaching you. And basically, well, where does he know the commandments? If you look, this is a very important sentence. If you look at Genesis chapter 26, verse 5. Chapter 26, 5. For Abraham knew all the commandments and directives and ordinances. He knew them by figuring them out by observation, rationalization, and special Ruach HaKodesh, the holiness that was imparted to him. And he took the knowledge of the Torah to disseminate it. And he did that throughout, as did his children, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Isaac, if you look at, write these numbers down in Genesis 21, 33, right? We have 12:4, in Genesis 13:8, right? In Genesis 21:33, Genesis 26:25. Oh, there's a lot of slew of places where the children set up altars to speak about the oneness and uniqueness of God. And that is what happened, right? What did I want to say? That, it's very important that we say prayer 3 times a day, Shacharis, Mincha, and Mara. And the big part of the prayer is the Shemona Esrei prayer, the prayer of 18 paragraphs of praise and request and thankfulness. And one of them, the very first one says, Ruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Elokei Avosenu Elokei Abraham Elokei Yitzchak Elokei Yaakov. It says, and God of Abraham, and God of Isaac, and God of Jacob. Why does it have to say, and all the God name before the Father's name, instead of saying, the Lord our God, the Father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Why does it have to say God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob? Let us say the God of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Right? That's a kasha. There's millions of kashas in the question that make you feel good. Right? You feel good if you even got the question, you didn't get the answer. Here's one possible answer: is that Abraham had 2 children. He had Isaac and Ishmael. It's not the God of Ishmael who went away into idolatry, but it's the God of Isaac. And Isaac had 2 children. He had 2 children, Jacob and Esau. And it's not the God of Esau who went off the derech, off the way, but it's the God of Jacob. To make you understand that it's not all our forefathers, but the forefathers that we just enumerated, and we enumerate 3 times a day when we say the Shemona Esrei prayer in our prayer service. So Abraham was chosen, and he went down. He had to stay there. God said the covenant was 400 years in exile. Well, because I'm going to give you the land. Because what happened in Canaan, that the people who stole the land, Acham was not allocated that land. Nevertheless, he transgressed, and their transgressions were not complete, and so they had to wait 400 years until the transgressions were completed, and then they were driven out of the land. But it's interesting to note that when they came out of the of slavery after 400 years on Passover, right? Don't forget, Passover is coming. We have to do all those particulars because God gave us meritorious chores to do to increase our holiness, and we have to accumulate as many opportunities to accrue holiness points. So what happened was that so they came out, and God says over there, they break it down, Exodus 19, chapter 19, verse 6. He says, if you listen to my voice and you observe the commandments, you will be a nation of Kohanim, a nation of priests. Not that you're going to listen to a teacher or a rabbi speaking, but you're going to be involved with teaching and learning and studying, right? And that's what the pasuk says. That's what the sentence says. That you listen to my voice and observe the covenant. Now, where's the covenant? I mean, what covenant that they had? They only had the covenant, that teachings of Abraham. Excuse me. So that was the covenant that they were to follow, and they made their march into the desert of Sinai, into the mountain, right, of Mount Sinai, and they had to to go to the mikveh and clean even their clothes. It doesn't say the word mikveh in there, but it says even that they had to wash even their clothes. We know for granted that there was a mikveh, but they had to bathe themselves in a mikveh, but also they had to even wash their clothing, right? So what happened now? That's it, we're in Exodus. So Rashi says over there, commentary, that the Bible's not all in chronological order. So he takes the chapter 24, 12 in Exodus, and he puts it over there, and he says before going to the mountain, because we celebrate the giving of the Torah on Shavuos, right? But what happened on Shavuos? There was the 10 commandments were given. It doesn't say anything about the Torah, the written Torah. Where does it say that? It said, the Jews came to the mountain and they listened to the 10 commandments, right? I am the Lord your God. And your God, speaking to the Jewish people. The Goyim want to hijack that also. They say it's our God, it's your God, whatever it is. They pick and choose. It's a restaurant? No, it's not a restaurant. Anyhow, so Rashi, way back, hundreds of years ago, got this teaching that we take the 24 chapter, Exodus 24, 12 or 13, and you put it before there, and you say that sentence says that God told Moses to come up to the mountain by himself, and I will give you the stone tablets and the writings that I made on them, the written Torah, and the commandments, which are the oral Torah, right? So here we see the picture of Moses coming down and from the mountain, and so forth and so on. But if they only heard the ten commandments, the Ten Commandments verbally, but if you put that sentence 24:12 into that prior to hearing the commandments, then it'll make sense that he did come down with the Torah and the written Torah and the Talmud. So look, there's a lot to talk about, and the time is getting short. I want to cover some other subjects if I can. I would really like to have a type of a study, a storefront type of a classroom where people could come in and work and do what I tried to do, basically teachings of Rabbi Millers. Most of it is from Rabbi Millers, and I'm trying to pass that over to you, and I want you to get to have that opportunity, because the synagogues are not open for people to work to base a medrash. It's not emphasized. There may be a little room back in the corner somewhere, but the rabbis want to speak, and they do all the work. They do all the work, and the poor congregant who is working all year, all week long, has an opportunity, and he has to hear the sermon, or he's not going to get that much out of it, and whatever he gets is not going to stick in his mind. Well, I'm not the greatest guy in the world, but I try to work hard and see if I can to accrue these teachings and pass them on, So, I don't have the paper with me here, but I would like to have a storefront yeshiva dedicated. How do you like that? I don't have the paper here. Anyway, who wants to? Even the synagogue, let them open it. But the rabbis don't want to do it. They have time. They don't have time. I don't know what the problem is. I approached them. They got other things on their agenda. So, but that is very important. Storefront yeshiva, right? Where you do the work. You do the work. A kingdom of Kohanim, kingdom of priests. So, I don't know where we are. But so they went to. So in 29, in Deuteronomy chapter 29:11, it says over there that people didn't hear the covenant of the Mount Sinai. We're going to give them another chance to pass through and give them and pass through the covenant that I'm going to give them and its imprecations. And its imprecations. Imprecations means curses, right? Imprecations that's going to be attached. You see, the covenant, it's not written down in, like 1, 2, 3, but it's written down in different places. Abraham knew about the teachings of the Torah and the imprecations and Deuteronomy's chapter, there's 98 curses if you go astray. And chapter 28 in Deuteronomy, the first 14 sentences, right? Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1 to 14, the first 14 sentences are follow the law and live by them, as I commanded you as you accepted it, because the people said, Na'aseh, we will do. Na'aseh v'nishma. God read it to them, all the directives. They said, Na'aseh, we will do, and we will learn. They said, well, who's we? Why don't say we? Why don't say I? He said, well, we means the dependents. Our dependents will be responsible for them to observe the commandments. So we have the implications. And in 28:64, if you go astray, you'll get a punishment that is not written about in the Torah. That has never been written about in the Torah. Now I want to tell you that, God is so much in our midst, and so much with our people that we're not aware of it. Look, during World War II, we have the World War II, we had in North Africa, the desert fox was Rommel. And I don't know if this is so clear, but Rommel had a supply line across the Mediterranean, right into North Africa. And he had all this land in North Africa was a supply line of thousands of troops and material and everything, 1941. And he could have wiped out the British, which had an expeditionary force made up of volunteers and conscripts, who knows what, all kind of people not very well trained. And he had and he couldn't get supplies because supplies from England had to come all the way around here. And Rommel had all these soldiers and troops, and he was beaten. Rommel was beaten by this expeditionary force. I said, well, the historian said they had access to the Enigma machine. They could break the code, and the British knew where they were going, and then they could attack them. Baloney! They had thousands upon thousands of well-trained troops. They could have knocked the British out 1, 2, 3. So what happened? All of a sudden, Hitler says, so he had to abandon this operation and go back. And you know how difficult it was for the Americans to Anzio and the boot to try and get every inch of ground was so heavily fortified. But he didn't bother with North Africa. He could have had all the oil and all kind of land. He had slaves. He could have killed the Jews in the Libya's, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia. But he didn't want to do that. Why? Because they had Jews in those countries of North Africa. Listen to the Chacham. Listen to the rabbi, called them Chacham. And they were all Shomer Mitzvah, keepers of the mitzvahs, of the Shabbos, and and all of the Torah. And they left. The Germans left. And where did they go? They went to the Pale of... They attacked Russia. Even though Russia had a treaty with Hitler. No, they attacked Russia. And what did they get out of it? They couldn't get to Moscow. But what they did get was the Pale of Settlements, right? The Pale of Settlements are a swath of land coming all the way from the Baltic countries, of Lithuania, and through Poland, and on the outskirts of Russia, all the way down to Ukraine and the Black Sea. That he had under his control. And what did he do? He murdered them like in a murder factory. He murdered them, man, woman, and child. They went to Shemayim. They went to heaven, and because they were Jews, they were automatically accepted into heaven. Even though the leaders went away, they threw away Judaism, the Cheder, and communism they accepted, and socialism they were coming on. They want to be accepted, and forgot about their Judaism, the leaders especially. And that's what happened. That's what happened. That's a theory, and it makes sense to a great degree. And instead of following North Africa, he could have knocked them over 1, 2, 3. He went and lost to Russia, and in the meantime he killed the Jews. What do you say? Well, listen, why should they be punished? Why should the Germans be punished? Because after all, God caused it to happen, right? God caused it to happen. And they shouldn't be punished because God, changed their free will, right? Hardened their hearts and made them evil. Yes, they were evil, and God had them commit atrocities, but not to the extent that they did. They kept on doing murderous acts, not what God had ordered. It's like Yeshiva ben Nevat. He was told to break away from the country of kingdom of Judah and form his own country with his own people, but only temporarily. Only temporarily, and he did not follow those instructions, and he set up a whole kingdom of Israel, which went into oblivion. He set up a kingdom of Nada, Basra, Elam, Zimri, Amri, Achav, all kings he set up. And those who break away from the congregation of Jews will not earn the Olam Haba. Yeshiva ben Nevat won't get it, nor Korach, and all those that broke away. So, I'm going to leave that subject. Time is running short. But look, I want to talk a little bit about the Mishkan, right? We've been talking about Parshas Tesava in Exodus that falls out on this recording of this program. And here is the portable temple, and it's described in Truma, and this is the outside of the temple, right? The outside of the temple, the portable temple, the Mishkan, and these are poles that are all around, and the hanging curtains. Now, Artscos has a beautiful picture of this, and it has arrows telling the names of the different parts, and on the poles it has arrows that says it is not conjunctive. And these are the poles, but it's not conjunctive. What does that mean? Is that we don't have enough evidence that actually that has been shown, that has been given to us, to show this is how it should be. But so we're putting it up and to a great degree, to a degree of what we feel it should be. But the arrow says conjunctive, right? And these are the poles that went around this is the opening here, this part here, the screen, and this is the east and this is the west. So these are the picture of the poles. No one speaks about the poles because they're hard to understand. They're hard to understand because they're not given complete. So here are the poles, and they put in the tops of it, and they hung the curtains along the poles. Right? These are the hooks where they held the curtains that went around the perimeter of the Mishkan, right? The tabernacle, the portable tabernacle. And here we have the curtain, and that are to be hung all throughout the perimeter, right? 100 feet by 50 feet, and that was the perimeter. But the Mishkan, the Holy of Holies, this is a picture. I don't know how well it's coming out, but this is that we just spoke about, the poles and the curtains, and went all the way around here, but this was the corruption where the thick beams that surrounded the Holy of Holies, where where those furniture was housed, and the Holy of Holies was one section of that part, as opposed to the Holy, and the Holy of Holies was only contained the ark, or the box, like golden inlaid box over sheathed wood, and these are poles that were ordered to stay on the rings at all times, because when the cloud in front of the tent of the meeting, right? It's called tent of the meeting because God met there. Ohel Moed. When the cloud departed, they were to carry these poles with the ark and cover them in certain ways. But the voice of God came down through the cherubim in between these two angelic features to Moses, where he heard the directives of God. And this is the Kohen Gadol, and this is the Urim Turim, and the straps were containing two stones that inscribed the 616 of the tribes of Israel, right? So this is a picture of the Urim Turim. Right. Am I getting this in here? Right here, or this opens up, and you put the holy name of God, irreferable name, and close this, and questions were asked, and these stones would light up and spell out words that we see that in Hannah and Shmuel, where he read So here's the apron, ephod. These are the two bands of material, and they with the stones, 6 names on 6 on each, and they came over the shoulders. And this is an ephod, and it should not be separated from the Urim Turim, because the ephod it tied in the front and opened in this is the back of a person, and the apron, this is an ephod, and this is an apron, to show that we're servants of God. We're servants of God. An ephod signifying an apron, and we serve God. God doesn't need our service, but and service means to what? To an adult is watching over his children, right? An adult watches over his children. He sees that they grow into manhood correctly. They are outstanding young people and following his directives, and that's what we want. That's what we want. That's what God wants of us, to follow the directives, to serve Him by living according to the dictates that His chosen people have been blessed with. And you know, over there in chapter 9 of Deuteronomy, it lists many of the transgressions that the Jewish people transgressed. But God, in His infinite wisdom, always loved the Jewish people. And in chapter 10, He says, a rhetorical question, what does God ask of you but to walk in His ways, to fear and have awe and do the commandments, for it is for your benefit. For it is for your benefit. That's what it says in verse 10, chapter 12, and in 14 it says over there that chapter 14 and 15, behold, to God is the heavens and the earth and everything that there is therein, but only in your forefathers does He delight to choose you, His offsprings, above all the nations of the world, as of this day. As of this day that we're reading it. And you know, when Jews, God is so good with us and patient, you know, when in Exodus chapter 33, you know, Moses said to God, he said, don't destroy my people. He said, you must continue. And God said, I'm not going to take the personally with you. I'm going to send my personal angel. I'll send a representative of low status, because I will punish you so heavily if you transgress. And Moses said, no, we want only you. And that's why we're being punished so much, because God is with us constantly, and we have to refrain from doing transgressions. And also he said that Moses asked him that we should be unique amongst the nations. Above all the nations we should be special. And God said, also this I will do too. In chapter 33 verse 16, this I will do too. Now look, I wanted, what is this number? You can leave a message. The point is, I like to have this, I want the people, the Jewish people, to hear about ideology, or get the books by Rabbi Millers. He has all kinds of information that he got from Sinai based on the teachings of the sentences that he got from Sinai. So, what can I say? With that, I'm going to say, spend time with your learning, and with that, good night and God bless.